He used to text, "Good morning," like it was a promise. Now he's married to someone who calls herself his peace. I used to think I was the prize. Lately, I wonder if I was the test he had to fail first. The first time I noticed it was in the office kitchen. The new guy, I think his name is Liam or something non-threatening, walked in while I was making tea. I smiled. He didn't. Not rudely, not coldly. Just, not at all. Like he was skipping that step on purpose. He poured his coffee with both hands like it was a delicate task, nodded politely, and left. No jokes. No awkward attempt at charm. Just silence. I told my coworker later. She said, "Men are scared of strong women." I used to agree. Now I'm not so sure. There's this undercurrent now. A hum under the surface of my life. Fewer texts. Fewer first moves. The group chat says it's just summer energy. Hot girl season. Men will crawl back in the fall. But I remember autumns when they didn't. I remember dates that ended in discussions about feminism, where I felt like a guest lecturer and not a woman trying to connect. I remember one guy saying, "I'm just tired of being taught how to love you correctly." Back then, I posted it as a flex. Now, it lands differently. I keep seeing her photos. The girl he married. Blonde, soft-featured, always captioning things like, "He makes it easy to love him." There's no irony in her posts. No sarcasm. Just a kind of sweetness I used to scoff at. The type of girl who bakes banana bread and calls it nurturing, not domestic labor. The kind of girl who doesn't post screenshots of his texts in group chats. Sometimes I imagine asking him, "Why her?" I already know what he'd say. Not because I asked, but because I saw the caption under his engagement photo. She felt like home. Not a debate. I used to debate for sport. Now I wonder if all those wins came at the cost of intimacy. Last week I opened Tinder again. Set my intentions to long-term relationship. Added a line about communication being sexy. Got 2 matches in 3 days. One guy unmatched after I messaged first. The other asked, "Why does every profile sound like a job interview?" I didn't reply. I didn't know how to say, because it feels like one. The group chat says men are intimidated. Maybe. Or maybe they're just gone. They didn't storm out. They slipped away. One by one. Like chairs being pulled from a table I thought we were all still sitting at. And I'm still here. Holding the teapot. Waiting for someone to smile first. There's a new girl at work. Sharp, opinionated, into performative affirmations like, "You're killing it, queen," even when you're just refilling your water bottle. She talks fast, interrupts faster, and uses the phrase "holding space" like it's punctuation. She reminds me of who I used to be. The version of me that wore red lipstick to Zoom meetings and corrected men when they said females instead of women. The one who tweeted things like "normalize blocking men who ask what your favorite movie is" and meant it. We're on the same team. She invited me to drinks after our first big project. I went, hoping to feel connected again. Hoping maybe I could catch some of the ease she has with herself. But she kept checking her phone, kept saying things like, "Men are so emotionally constipated it's almost violent." Everyone laughed. I fake laughed too. There was a guy across the bar, sitting alone with a book. Not in the performative way, no Vonnegut cover visible, no angling the spine toward the room. Just reading. I used to roll my eyes at that kind of guy. Now I wondered if he felt safe there. If the silence felt kinder than whatever women like me might say if he opened his mouth wrong. When I got home, I opened Hinge again. Changed my profile. Removed "if you voted for," redacted, swipe left. Took out the line about emotional labor. Left in the pasta thing. Added one photo without makeup. Within an hour, a match. He messaged first. "Hey, you seem thoughtful." It stopped me. Not clever. Not hot. Not a pun. Just soft. I stared at it for 20 minutes before replying. "Thanks. You too." He replied the next morning. "What are you reading these days?" No man had asked me that in years. We messaged for a few days. He used full sentences. Asked follow-up questions. I almost felt safe. Then he disappeared. Just stopped replying. No unmatch. No rudeness. Just vanished. Group chat said, "He probably couldn't handle you." But I reread the messages and I don't think that's true. I think maybe he gave more than he had left to give. And when it didn't land perfectly, he retreated the way burnt skin avoids sun. That used to piss me off. Now it makes me ache. I don't miss men chasing me. I miss when they believed there was something worth chasing. I found an old screenshot in my phone. A guy from a couple years back, maybe law school, maybe marketing, I don't even remember now. He had sent me a playlist titled For When You Feel Soft, and I had captioned it in the group chat. This man is trying to girlfriend me like a hostage negotiator. Got 7 laughing reacts. At the time, it felt like wit. Like a flex to be so wanted that I could afford to be indifferent. Now I just stare at the track list. Phoebe Bridgers. Frank Ocean. Instrumental stuff I'd never heard of. He had remembered that I said lyrics sometimes overwhelmed me. I never listened to it. Back then, trying too hard was a red flag. Men who adored you quickly were suspect. Love bombing. Future faking. If he wanted to see me twice in 1 week, it meant he was controlling. If he called instead of texting, he was boundaryless. If he complimented my dress more than once, it was the patriarchy in a nice shirt. I trained myself to flinch at softness. The irony is I was exhausted. Tired of being the emotionally literate one. The one explaining what gaslighting meant or why crazy ex jokes weren't funny. I thought if I could teach enough, the right man would rise to the occasion. But the ones who tried, who really tried, didn't last long. I always found a reason to end it. He was too eager. Too available. Too earnest. Translation: he made me feel safe and I didn't know what to do with that. Last week, a guy I used to call too much eye contact messaged me on Instagram. We hadn't spoken in over a year. He wrote, "Hope you're doing okay. Just wanted to say I learned a lot from our time together." No agenda. No flirtation. Just that. I stared at it, thumb hovering over the heart emoji. I didn't know how to respond. I felt something twist, not regret exactly, more like grief. Like I had thrown away something I hadn't understood until it was too late. Later, at wine night, I tried to bring it up. Asked the girls, "Do you ever think we were too harsh? Like, maybe some of the guys we dismissed were just trying in weird ways." Silence. Then one said, "Men should know better by now." Another nodded. If we start giving them credit for basic decency, we're setting the bar lower. I didn't push. But something about it felt brittle. Like we were all holding up a script that used to feel powerful and now just felt tired. That night, I listened to the playlist. Every track. All the way through. I cried at track 7. Not because it was sad, but because someone once tried to understand me. And I laughed about it. Dating apps used to feel like a candy store. Endless options, no accountability. I could swipe from bed, at work, during a protest planning Zoom. Back then, the power was in the abundance. Now the silence between matches feels like a hallway with all the doors closed. I re-downloaded Bumble 2 weeks ago. My profile's simple now, no politics, no ultimatums, just a photo of me laughing with my hand over my face. A lie, but a soft one. I got 3 matches in a week. One unmatched immediately. One messaged, "Hey," and nothing else. The third asked, "Why do all girls say they like hiking but never go?" I didn't reply. Not because I was offended, but because I didn't know how to respond without performing. I used to be good at that banter, edge, a little condescension. Now it feels exhausting. There's a guy at my gym who used to flirt. Not aggressively, just light eye contact, a wave. Once he helped me re-rack a barbell and said, "Most girls don't re-rack at all." Respect. At the time, I told my friends it was low-key misogynistic. Now I'm not sure. He doesn't wave anymore. Doesn't look. When we pass each other, he adjusts his grip on the dumbbells or pretends to check his watch. I think that's what's different now. The avoidance. The absence. Not because they're uninterested, but because they've learned we might turn kindness into content. Look at this man thinking I can't lift 45 pounds. 700 likes. There's a meme going around, men will literally choose peace over dating. It's meant to be funny. It's not. I went out with a guy from Hinge last weekend. Let's call him Jay. Mid-30s. Graphic designer. Divorced. He said that early, almost like an apology. I told him I appreciated the honesty. He smiled, not with his mouth but with his shoulders. Like a tension released. We had 2 drinks. Talked about art, childhood, mushrooms. At one point, I asked what he's looking for. He paused. Said, connection. But if it gets hard, I'm out. It wasn't defensive. It was weary. He added, I did the work. The therapy. The books. The accountability. I still got blamed for her unhappiness. I just can't be the villain again. I nodded. Said something about how healing isn't linear. But I felt it. The fracture line beneath his voice. The part of him still willing to show up, but only with one foot inside the door. He walked me to my car. Didn't try to kiss me. Just said, take care. Not, I'll text you. Not, let's do this again. Just, take care. I sat in my car afterward and didn't cry. I just stared at my hands for a long time, thinking, maybe this is what dating feels like now. Not rejection. Not chemistry. Just 2 people comparing scars and deciding not to press too hard. The woman who used to retweet everything I wrote about emotional labor unfollowed me last night. I noticed because I still check. Not obsessively, just occasionally. Enough to feel that drop in the stomach when the number changes. She was the kind of digital sisterhood you think will always stay. We used to send each other memes about men who can't even communicate their pizza order without toxic masculinity. I sent her flowers when her cat died. She once mailed me a pin that said patriarchy's worst nightmare. And now gone. No fight. No fallout. Just a soft, silent exit. I thought about texting her. Hey, everything okay? But what would that be really? A quiet accusation? A request to explain her shift in emotional allegiance? Instead, I scrolled her feed. It's softer now. More self-love quotes, fewer callouts. A lot of nature. Ocean clips. Breath work. She follows a few masculinity coach types now. The kind we used to mock for saying things like, the feminine craves containment. I screenshot one and sent it to the group chat. Captioned it, another one bites the sage-dusted dust. Only 2 people reacted. A laughing emoji and a skull. No one commented. And it hit me, the jokes aren't landing like they used to. There was a time when being harsh felt like clarity. Like activism. Like self-protection. Now it just feels like I'm swinging at ghosts. Men aren't fighting back. They're just quiet. Or married. Or posting videos about learning to love solitude. Even the angry ones aren't really angry anymore. I scroll Reddit late at night, like picking at a scab. r/ask men. r/dating over 30. r/mangoing yuk nowhere. Most of them aren't ranting. They're explaining. Documenting. Stories about being the emotional dump site for girlfriends who left them for men with less sensitivity and better cars. Stories about paying for everything and still being told they didn't do enough. Stories about trying to heal, only to be told they were doing the work wrong. And I believe some of them. Not all. But some. That's new. The belief. The small, bitter pill of maybe they're not all lying. I remembered a guy I dated in grad school. He used to say, I just want to be enough for someone who's not exhausted by the idea of me. At the time, I thought it was manipulative. Now I think maybe he was just tired of being studied like a symptom. I looked him up. He's married now too. His wife's bio says, here to love, not to lecture. I don't know whether to laugh or mourn. I used to love arguments. Not fights, but the intellectual kind. I dated men who were debaters, philosophy majors, hot in a brooding, I read Camus way. We'd spar over dinner, over text, sometimes even during sex. I thought if a man could argue with me, he respected me. Now, when I push, they go quiet. Not angry. Not sulking. Just quiet. It's disorienting. A few nights ago, I matched with someone who seemed promising. Funny, smart, his profile said recovering overthinker. We messaged about dogs and AI ethics. I told him I loved how measured he was, how intentional. He said, that's what happens when being misunderstood has consequences. I asked what he meant. He just said, let's not go there. I pushed, of course. Old habits. You can't just say that and not explain. He replied, I used to explain. Then I realized no one really listens. They just wait for their turn to win. I stared at the message for 10 minutes. I wanted to argue. Say I'm not like that. Say I listen. But a small voice in my head whispered, "Do you?" When men used to fumble their feelings, I called it emotional incompetence. When they over-explained, I said they were defensive. When they got quiet, I accused them of shutting down. There was no right move, only increasingly narrow corridors they had to walk without error. I've started to notice how much effort men make now to not offend. The long pauses. The hesitations before saying "you look nice." The way they add "if that's okay" to compliments. I met a friend of a friend at a gathering. Sweet guy. Tall in a non-threatening way. He brought vegan brownies and passed them around like a peace offering. I told him they were good. He smiled. Thanks. I was nervous no one would eat them. I asked why. He said, because I'm a man offering food. And he said it like it was obvious. Later, I overheard him saying to another guy, I used to flirt. Now I just bake. I laughed, but not out loud. Something in my chest tightened. Like watching someone turn a poem into a warning sign. I've been thinking about how silence used to mean mystery. Power. Now it feels like resignation. Not the absence of something, but the giving up of it. These men aren't fighting anymore. They're folding their wings. Quietly. Carefully. As if they know we'll find fault either way. And maybe we will. I used to love the group chat. It was where I felt the most myself, sarcastic, clever, affirmed. We named it Vagenda of Manocide as a joke, but the name stuck longer than any of our relationships. Back then, every story had a punchline. A guy sent a selfie in bed? Clown emoji. A man called himself emotionally intelligent on his profile? Screenshot, followed by "Run, sis." If one of us cried over someone, we labeled it patriarchy residue and sent a Venmo request for wine therapy. It was a chorus. A lifeline. A place where every disappointment became content. Now, it feels like shouting into a well. I posted a meme last week, something snarky about men who ask, "What are you looking for?" as a first message. Only one person responded. A dry LOL. I used to get 10 DMs a day from the chat. Now it's mostly logistics. Who's bringing snacks? Who's still coming to the birthday thing? We still perform the friendship, but the energy has shifted. Less intimacy. More PR. I think we're all tired of the script. At brunch last month, someone brought up a guy she's seeing. He hasn't called me in 3 days, she said. So I'm obviously blocking him. It was said with a smile, but it cracked around the edges. I asked, what if he's just overwhelmed? The table went quiet. Then someone laughed. Girl, don't make excuses for subpar men. But no one really joined in. Afterward, one of the women pulled me aside. Quietly, she said, sometimes I wonder if we raised the bar so high no one wants to try anymore. I nodded. She never brought it up again. I reread old messages now. From men I dismissed. Some were awkward. Some were weird. Some were sweet in ways I didn't know how to receive. There's one that still haunts me. I feel like dating you is like applying for a job I'm not qualified for. At the time, I posted it as a joke. Called it the atrophication of romance. Got hundreds of likes. Now, it just feels sad. Because maybe it was. Maybe love used to be about being seen. Now it feels like being evaluated. And everyone's tired of being on trial. Especially the ones who used to show up anyway. There was a man once. Let's call him D. Not because he deserves anonymity, but because naming him feels too intimate now. D was the first one I let in after the era of red flags as content. He wasn't perfect, but he was steady. Showed up with groceries when I was sick. Remembered my friend's name from a story I told once in passing. Listened when I vented about the microaggressions at work, really listened, without trying to fix it. And I exhausted him. I know that now. At the time, I thought I was being honest. Transparent. Advocating for my needs. I'd say things like, I just need more emotional presence, and it's not enough to show up, you have to show up right. I corrected his language, his tone, his timing. I gave feedback like I was reviewing a performance. And he tried. God, he tried. He read the articles. Went to therapy. Bought the books I left out on the coffee table like traps. Once, he said, I feel like I'm constantly auditioning for the role of someone who already loves you. I didn't respond. I think I thought he was being dramatic. Or maybe I didn't want to admit he was right. He left after a quiet fight. No yelling. No final straw. Just a gentle, exhausted, "I can't keep trying to be someone who doesn't make you flinch." That was 2 years ago. He's engaged now. To someone I don't know, but I've stalked her enough to know she's not like me. She posts dog pictures. Loves fall candles. Says hubby unironically. Her captions are simple. Not sarcastic. Just soft. She doesn't look like she's trying to win anything. Sometimes I think about reaching out. Just to say, I get it now. You were doing your best. And maybe your best wasn't perfect, but it was still good. Still worthy. But I don't. Because the truth is, I didn't just lose him. I lost the part of me that knew how to receive kindness without grading it first. I told myself I was empowering men to be better. But maybe I was just training them to stop trying. Now, when someone texts thinking of you, I stare at it like it's a test. And when no one texts at all, I pretend I don't notice. But I do. There's a guy I pass every week on my walk to the farmer's market. Same bench. Same black hoodie. Same air of practiced stillness. He used to nod when I passed. Not flirt. Not leer. Just acknowledge. I liked that. Safe, neutral, almost tender. But lately, even the nod is gone. His eyes stay fixed on the book in his lap, pages never turning. I think he knows I used to smile a little too triumphantly after he nodded back. Like I'd collected a small victory for being approached with respect. Maybe he sensed it. Maybe he's tired of playing parts in someone else's quiet self-affirmation. I can't blame him. This week, I brought him a coffee. A peace offering. A small, warm, maybe inappropriate gesture. He didn't take it. Just looked at me, then down. Not angry. Not unkind. Just uninterested. I stood there for a beat too long, feeling ridiculous. Coffee still warm in my hand. The air suddenly thick with something I couldn't name. That night, I told the girls in the group chat. Framed it as a story about men being afraid of any vulnerability. No one replied. Not even an emoji. We used to dissect these moments like forensic scientists. Now it's like we've all run out of language for the same ache. On my way home, I passed a couple holding hands. The girl was laughing, not performatively. Head thrown back, mouth wide. The man looked at her like she was the sun. I used to scoff at that. Too heteronormative. Too dependent. Too obvious. Now I just watched. Not with envy. Not quite. Just curiosity. Like someone watching a species she used to belong to. My therapist asked last week what I wanted from partnership. I said, safety and softness. She nodded, but I think she wanted more. So did I. But that answer was the truth, even if it came too late. Because safety and softness aren't just things I want, they're things I don't know how to accept anymore without suspicion. And I think the men feel it too. Maybe that's why they're gone. Not ghosted. Not hiding. Just gone. Moved out of the house we built together with words like equality and emotional labor, tired of waiting to be welcomed inside. Maybe they found somewhere quieter. Maybe they're still out there, holding coffees and waiting to be seen, not judged, not corrected, just seen. And maybe I used to know how to do that. I don't know when it happened exactly. The shift. The echo turning into silence. The applause becoming absence. But now I walk into rooms where men used to smile, used to joke, used to try, and I feel it. The carefulness. The distance. Like they're all waiting to be dismissed before they say anything at all. And I used to think that was power. Now, it feels like I'm standing in a room full of muted televisions, faces moving, words lost, no sound. Just motion with no meaning. There's one man I still think about. He was kind. Not performatively. Just deeply, steadily kind. He used to send long texts about his day. Not because they were interesting, but because he thought I'd care. I didn't. I told him to get to the point. He stopped texting entirely a week later. I looked him up recently. He's off social media. Nothing but a LinkedIn profile with a new job and no smile in the picture. It's the kind of disappearance that doesn't feel like erasure. Just retreat. And I've started to notice how many men are doing that. Not ghosting. Not flaking. Just quietly removing themselves from our stories. They're not asking for our approval anymore. They're not arguing back. They're not even watching. Just walking away. Out of the group chats, the dating apps, the conversations. And I think that's what scares me the most. Not rejection. Not anger. But apathy. I used to believe that if men didn't show up for us, it was because they didn't want to. Now I'm wondering if it's because they no longer believe we'll meet them there. Not with trust. Not with softness. Not with grace. I keep remembering something a guy said on a podcast I hate listen to now. Men are leaving the dating market not because they're weak, but because they're done auditioning for roles that come with no script, no safety, and no applause. I rolled my eyes when I first heard it, but it stuck with me like a splinter. Because maybe that's what this whole thing has become, a performance with no audience. No one clapping. No one watching. Just men walking off stage before the third act. And women like me, still holding cue cards. Still waiting for someone to deliver their lines. Still whispering, was I not compelling enough to stay? Maybe the answer is yes. Maybe the answer is no. Maybe they're just tired. And maybe now, finally, so am I.